Hello, my name is David Craybill, the Director of the Innovative Agricultural Research Initiative, known as iAGRI. Thank you for this opportunity to address the 30th Annual General Meeting of SUA Convocation, the Alumni Association of Sokoine University of Agriculture. I will be speaking to you about transforming SUA Convocation. iAGRI has been working at SUA for 3.5 years. Near the beginning of the project, SUA top administration asked iAGRI to assist in transforming mindsets in order to facilitate the restructuring of the university. Today, I'll be talking about one part of the organizational transformation that Sokoine University of Agriculture is undertaking with assistance from iAGRI. Let us begin with several principles and concepts. First of all, organizations, especially universities, are complex, and therefore change is not easy. Let us now examine the kind of leadership that is needed for complex systems, such as universities, to be adaptive, that is, to change, to reinvent themselves in order to stay relevant and effective to their stakeholders. I would now like to present 3 steps that can be undertaken by organizations to adapt effectively to changing circumstances over time. First, adaptive organizations encourage their members to engage in conversations that matter. Second, adaptive organizations encourage their members to experiment with new organizational ideas and structures. In other words, they search for ways that work. And third, out of this organizational learning process, adaptive organizations implement changes that sustain, that help the organization to become better in achieving its mission. Every organization has 2 types of internal systems: a formal system and an informal system. The formal system is the public face of the organization. But behind the public face is an informal system. It is present in every organization, though in some organizations it may be hidden from public view. Let's examine the informal system of an organization. The informal system is made up of relationships, conversations, and activities that cannot be predicted merely by looking at the organizational chart, the policies and procedures, and other aspects of the formal system. The informal system is operating whenever people stop to talk with one another in the hallway, when they talk with other members of the organization by telephone, when they interact with other members by email, or when they meet in small or large groups that are not mandated by the formal system of the organization. At its best, the informal system involves the sharing of creative ideas, constructive emotions, and positive energy. At its worst, the informal system is a network of rumors, backbiting, and negativity. Effective leaders of organizations know that a healthy, vibrant, informal system is vital for creating dynamic and constructive change in the formal system. Because they know this, effective leaders nurture and encourage the informal system within their organization. As I said, all organizations have both a formal system and an informal system. At SUA, the formal system consists of government regulations, the legal charter of the university, policies of the university, procedures, programs, and people in terms of their positions and responsibilities. Alongside the formal system is a set of social networks, which I have referred to as the informal system. With assistance from iAGRI, groups throughout SUA are now engaging in conversations that matter regarding areas of the university that university members have decided to improve. These are not just ordinary conversations, but conversations that matter. And I'll define what that means in a moment. When these conversations are open and honest, the groups become problem solvers. They begin to search for ways that work to address the problems that they are discussing. They search for ways that work by engaging in organizational experiments outside of what previously had been done at the university. From this experimentation, the groups draw conclusions about what works and what doesn't, and then set about to influence the formal system through changes that strengthen and sustain the university as the world changes around it. If this process of organizational experimentation is working, we will observe changes in policies, procedures, programs, and perhaps most importantly, in people's ways of thinking about the organization and about their role in the organization. What is a conversation that matters? It's a conversation that ends with a clear specification of the next steps. What exactly is going to be done? Who is going to do it? And when will it be done? In many organizations, problems and aspirations are discussed without a clear identification of next steps. Such a conversation does not matter, or at least does not matter very much, because it's not likely to bring about change. In contrast, in a conversation that matters, persons participating in the conversation leave it with a clear understanding about what, who, and when will be undertaken. SUA Convocation provides us with an excellent example of a conversation that matters. It began in 2013 with a trip from Sokoine University of Agriculture in Tanzania to Ohio State University in the United States by Professor Peter Gila, the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academics at SUA. He is also the Secretary of Convocation. While he was on the OSU campus, Professor Gila visited the office of the Ohio State University Alumni Association. There he met with the association's Chief Operating Officer, Andy Gerd. The OSU Alumni Association has a long history of building strong relationships with its alumni, and this benefits the university in many ways. Professor Gila was impressed with the goals, activities, and successes of the Ohio State University Alumni Association, and he asked Mr. Gerd to visit SUA to advise on how it could strengthen its alumni association. This was a conversation that mattered because it ended with a clear identification of next steps. When Professor Gila, the DVC academic, returned to SUA, there was a second conversation that mattered. Professor Gila visited the office of the iAGRI director and made a request. His request was that iAGRI sponsor the travel of Mr. Gerd, the Chief Operating Officer of the Ohio State University Alumni Association, to visit SUA to advise on how SUA Convocation could develop stronger ties with its alumni and become an important resource to the university. The iAGRI director agreed, and the two of them discussed an appropriate date for the visit, making this a conversation that mattered. The DVC academic then took the idea of the visit by Mr. Gerd to the president of the Executive Committee of Convocation, Professor Gabriel Mbassa, and to the entire Executive Committee. The committee embraced the idea, and with the help of Samantha Alvis and Steve Bosserman of iAGRI, embarked on a year of preparation for the visit of Mr. Gerd. For example, during this time, the Executive Committee began developing a database of all alumni of SUA. Then, in May 2014, Mr. Gerd, the Alumni Association official from Ohio State University, visited Tanzania and spent a week at SUA working with the president of the Executive Committee of Convocation, Professor Mbasa, the other members of the committee, and Samantha Alvis of iAGRI. Mr. Gerd conducted a workshop on how universities can build relationships with their alumni members. The workshop was well attended. Mr. Gerd and the team interviewed various groups to get their opinions on how to improve SUA Convocation. They met with the university's top management. They met with deans, directors, and department heads at the university. They met with professors and other members of the academic staff. They met with members of the non-academic staff, and they met with undergraduate and postgraduate students. So, what then were the results of these conversations that matter? One result is that for the first time, SUA Convocation had a strategic plan. It set clear goals and actions for how to make the organization more effective. A second result is that SUA has interviewed and selected a convocation liaison officer, a full-time employee of the university who will be focused on strengthening the university's relationship with its alumni. A third result is that Convocation has now been allocated a building on campus for an office. This building was recently renovated by iAGRI. That finishes our examination of conversations that matter, the first step in the organizational transformation of Convocation. The next step in organizational transformation is to search for ways that work. How is this done? In the case of Convocation, it will be done through organizational experiments carried out by the Executive Committee of Convocation, by alumni members who work at SUA, and by alumni members outside campus, throughout Tanzania and throughout the world. An organizational experiment is any new way of doing things that was not previously done by the organization. For example, Convocation could set up chapters and relate to them in a much more active way than it has done in the past. By conducting organizational experiments, such as setting up chapters and other activities, over the next year, Convocation officials and members will draw conclusions about how to change the formal system of Convocation, and they will implement changes that sustain. That is, changes that strengthen Convocation and that are sustainable in the long run. Let us now return to the diagram showing how the formal system of an organization, such as SUA, can be transformed by conversations and experimentation in the informal system. The changes we are now seeing in Convocation began with conversations. Those conversations truly mattered, in the sense that problems and issues were discussed, and the persons in those conversations identified what would be done, who would do it, and when it would be done. Convocation leaders are like scientists conducting an experiment to find new ways of relating to the university's alumni. The lessons learned from these experiments can help transform the formal system of Convocation and even help transform Sokoine University of Agriculture. As the university learns valuable lessons from these experiments, it will improve its policies, its procedures, its programs, and perhaps more importantly, its people will change. They will begin to change their thinking about the role of SUA in the economy in Tanzania and society of Tanzania. Organizations are transformed when they engage in widespread internal organizational experimentation. Revitalization of Convocation is one of 20 organizational experiments SUA is currently undertaking as it restructures. Join the action. When members get involved in the process of change, it changes mindsets and it transforms the organization.